very much in the frame for the title. But none of us will forget the heroics of the Iron Man that year, Pitер Ебдон. He was absolutely granite. He was swimming a mile in the build-up to this one. He'd read every psychology book in history, I think, in his preparation. And this was an achievement that we'll never, ever forget. Now, he's been back here 20 years later as a mentor to Kyron Wilson and to Jack Lisowski, but it's the efforts of 2 decades ago that will live with us forever. Stephen, look away now.
Exit.
Pitер Ебдон, you are champion of the world, 2002.
It's, what, 20 years this year. To be back at the Crucible now this year for the first time since I retired is pretty incredible. And it's always really special to be back here as world champion. You know, you walk in and, you know, you see your photo up there as a previous champion and amongst all those great champions. And yeah, it's something very, very special. It's lovely to be working with Kyron and Jack and pass on my experience and, you know, hopefully see the difference and, you know, be there with them, you know, during the good times and when times are tough. That really means an awful lot to me. I'd worked really hard in 2002 and, you know, I wasn't blessed with the natural ability of somebody like Jack or Ronnie O'Sullivan or Neil Robertson or Sean Murphy, you know, these sort of people. So I really had to train my mind to be really strong. And I think a lot of people don't understand it's very, very gladiatorial out there. It's important to be able to take yourself and be where you want to be where you need to be mentally.
And it's Pitер Ебdon who goes through to the second round.
You know, you really got to be strong in your mind to prepare yourself for when the chances come along, and fortunately I took my chance when I needed to. I was, you know, physically in pain at the end of the day, and although I didn't know it at the time, the wear and tear for all the work that I'd been putting in ultimately would mean that, you know, it would be the end of my career with the wear and tear in my neck. It's literally you against that guy, and you know, who's going to be the stronger? Are you going to take centre of the ring, so to speak? Are you going to be the strong guy, or are you going to let him take control? So, you know, in my mind, I always had to be really, really strong, and you know, no matter who I come up against, I always believed that I could win and I could make it really hard for them. And you know, sometimes it worked, more often than not it didn't, but you know, I gave it my best. Matthew played so well in that match. It's, you know, something I'll never forget as long as I live, for how well he played in that game. And you know, I'm sure I've said it before, but my lasting impression was, you know, him pulling away from me and me trying to hang on to his coattails. That's how well he played.
Just the red, and that would win the match.
In my own mind, you know, I was going to win. It was as simple as that. My focus and, you know, desire and motivation and, you know, concentration, you know, the goal setting I was doing, all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, it was just huge. I was just, you know, ready for it.
But if he misses this pink, he's out of the championship. Terrific shot. Well, that's the bravest shot I've ever seen.
I think I remember Steve Davis interviewing me in the semi-finals, and he asked me what I thought my chances were, and I just said to him very simply, and believed it, that I wanted it more than anybody else, and I did.
Pitер Ебdon goes through to the final.
You try to take it all in, but you don't really, because you're so focused. You know, I think everybody else is savouring the occasion and savouring the atmosphere, but, you know, as a player, you're just absolutely focused and determined on what you're doing. And, you know, I was playing the greatest player of all time. If Stephen Hendry was an animal, he would be the biggest, baddest, meanest great white shark ever. And that's how I visualised him as a player. And he was like that. He was an absolute killing machine.
But it's a tremendous pot.
Towards the end of the World Championship, you're playing on instinct and you're running on adrenaline. It was a question of digging deeper. It was like squeezing that sponge. Come on, you know, a little bit more, and for me, that's what it was like.
89. Peter Ебдон clears with 89 to take the last frame of the day, and a 10-6 overnight lead.
I remember starting the tournament at 11 stone 8, and 17 days later I was 10 stone 3. It really was a grueling mental process to keep myself up for it all the time. So I'm thinking black, red, black, world champion. Stephen was always going to clear up because that's what he did. He did that his whole career. And then somehow I had to get myself ready for that final frame.
55.
I made an unbelievable break, probably the most important break of my career.
Where's this white going? It's gone in.
The shot that Stephen went in off, he was really, really unlucky because he tried to develop the black and bring the black away from the side cushion. You know, it was just my time, it was meant to be.
It's in. It's over. 7 times world champion Stephen Hendry claps his hand and says, well done, Peter Ебдон. You are the champion of the world. 2002. What a performance!
It was like the realisation, you know, of all the dream. It's all the hard work, all the persistence, all the disappointment, all the frustration. You know, to actually, you know, achieve what you always wanted to achieve. It's something incredibly special, and I'll always be very thankful for it. My daughter Carissa came out, and then I hugged Carissa, and that actually sort of kept me grounded, actually, because I was sort of up there with the stars, I think, at the time. I mean, for me, it was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. You know, I wish it had been more, but, you know, we can't be too greedy, can we? Because it's not every day you become world champion in your sport, you know, your passion.
Wow, very, very special memories for Peter, and it's safe to look now. He was terribly magnanimous to you. But when you reflect on that absolutely epic final, what are your abiding memories of it, Stephen?
You don't really remember too much about the final. I remember that black off a spot that he missed, and almost, you know, jumping off my seat to get to the table and clear up, and really thinking, that's it, I'm winning this now. I'm thinking, just give me one chance to the inside, I'm winning this now, and I got a kind of a half chance, didn't take it, and as Peter said, he made a magnificent break to win the final frame. But yeah, thank you to everyone for showing that. I mean, couldn't find one of mine. It's an anniversary.
You've had plenty. I do remember that you were on record as saying, not at the time, but thinking, you didn't think that Peter was going to be able to beat you over 4 sessions because you'd already played in a final before.
Yeah, and I'd beaten Ronnie in the semi-final. We had a bit of a grudge match, and I played fantastic to win that semi-final. And I honestly didn't think over 4 sessions Peter could beat me, but he did. He did, and you know, players win other tournaments, but to win the World Championship, you've got to be a proper player, and Peter was a proper player.
He was indeed, and actually, just from a point of view of watching it, Steve, you've been involved in a final frame decider, but as a pundit and as a presenter,
when was that?
it was the first time that you'd have to sit there and actually live it in a different perspective. How did it change your view of a sport that you had given everyone so much pleasure with, and now you were sitting there watching other people go through it?
Well, I think you just know what everybody's going through, and you know full well that anything can be missed. But it's always a shock when, and when exactly the same as Stephen, when Peter missed that, like, wow, and we're sitting in the studio, we're just living it, and there's players, so it's great to be part of the team here, because I don't play snooker anymore, but I come here and I live it as a player again, and the juices all flow again. I would take issue with Peter Ебдон's assessment of his own ability. I think he's incredibly talented. I think he does himself down in there. He may not look as fluent as some of them, but I think his ability was one of the reasons why he beat Stephen, and he got. You don't win the World Championship without having bundles of talent. It might not manifest itself in the same way as a Ronnie or a Jack Lisowski, but he's still got it all.
Yeah, I think people tend to think if you're a fast player, that means you're talented, naturally talented, and other players aren't. You know, it's nonsense, complete nonsense.
For me, it affirmed the power of the mind. It was an extraordinary achievement, and I will never forget it, I must be honest. All right, we are in